So my name is Asante Katiti. I am a political advisor, as a sum up. I was openly bisexual, right? So I come from a homosexual background. And so when I did give my life to God, a friend actually invited me to church. And then I eventually, after a while, gave my life to God. So victory weekend, or victory training rather, I had absolutely no idea what it was, to be honest with you. It was just hints of people's experiences, because like my connect leader was like, oh, I benefited from this so much. I think you also are going to benefit. And so I did not necessarily know what the benefits would be. Neither did I know like what the subjects were going to be until I, of course, got like the book before the training started. So I did not necessarily have any kind of expectations. I was just like, okay, victory. The convictions that I got through this particular training was on idols and idolatry. When you grow up in church, or if you've ever been exposed to the Bible as a child, Sunday school, RME, whatever the case may be, we are taught that in the commandment, God is like, you shall have no other gods besides me. And so for me personally, I've always assumed gods were like other religions, like Buddha, Allah and stuff like that. And so I always figured that I believe in God. Even if you live in a sinful life, if you identify as a Christian, like you believe in God. And so I figured I don't have any other gods. But the convictions and the things that God was bringing forth was like, child, you got a lot of gods. And one of those was really myself. Like I feel like I was an idol to myself. And the things that and my sexuality was an idol as well. So there's also a burning ceremony that happens, right? Almost like at the end of victory training. And then, you bring your idols, you bring either, and for different people it's different things. Some of them it's beats, some of them it's cultural things. Some of them it's books, like astrology books and things like that. Some of them are statues. And so the whole time I was thinking, okay, I have an astrology book, so I'll bring that. So I figured like, I got less gods than other people. You know what I'm saying? But one of the things that was not even being mentioned as an idol was because, again, I come from a bisexual past, like my whole house was filled with like female nudes, right? It was like paintings that I've drawn myself, it's things that I've painted, it's images that I've curated and that I've paid for and that I've framed. And so they're practically all over the place. And then the Holy Spirit was like pointing those out. There was like a really deep conviction about, these are idols as well. And I never saw them as that because they were always part of my life. And, people that know me when they walk into my space, it's like, yeah, that's her stuff, so it's, and I'm a lover of art. But then at the end of the session, I was like, yo, Pastor Chris, I have like these images. And then he was just like, pray about it, right? And then bring them the next day, after you've prayed about them. And so I went home and I prayed about it. And so I just told myself, I'm just going to remove them from the walls. Because I really did not think they were an idol. They were just beautiful art pieces. So I started removing them from the wall. And as I was removing them, I started crying, like really crying, as if somebody was taking something away from me. And then that's when I had like a really introspective conversation with the Holy Spirit, which was like, if it's not an idol, why does it hurt? Like if it's really not an idol, Asante, if you say it's not an idol, why does it pain you so much? And I really just removed them from the walls. It's only then that I began ashamed of them, or that I became shameful of the whole nudity that was part of my life. And I've been serving God for a while. And I was just like, up until this point, I hadn't considered that it was like an issue. And I was actually shy to bring them to church, because I considered like, church is holy. How do I bring like, naked pictures to church, or like naked frames of the artwork that I'd curated. But then at the end of the day, like I still brought them and I did burn them. And the thing that I got from that was the first time after that, when I stepped into my space, it felt white and it felt light. And it's as if the Holy Spirit was like, yes, I'm not sharing my space anymore, and it just became such a beautiful sanctuary. But what I've learned, especially with like burning these particular images and burning this artwork, was the things that I was struggling with spiritually. There was a physical anchor that I created. So these images were, to the naked eye, they were art pieces, but they were an anchor to the problems that God was resolving for me, because they still had legal rights to be in my space. So as much as I would be, because usually spiritual dreams would not maybe happen like if you're visiting a friend or if you're traveling, but like whilst you're in your space, it's there because it created so much perversion. And I exposed so many people to perversion. I exposed my family to perversion, my friends, strangers, people that I would be hosting was exposed to this, And the thing is, through God, like really resolving this particular issue, like through the victory training, it really also allowed me to like freely tackle issues of sexual immorality, like, as a testimony, or, when I'm like advising people, it's like, God can heal you from sexual immorality. And when you're having conversations with people, God will take you back to what is their anchor. Find out what the anchor is that they're still holding on to. What are the relationships that they're still in? Because those things are opening spiritual doors. I'm trying to close it, but God has given you dominion on earth. And that is the dominion that the enemy used because you are unaware of it. And victory training like really gives you that particular awareness. Like, oh, so this, If you are a person that is struggling with homosexuality, or you come from a homosexual past, and either you've openly lived your homosexual life or privately, or you've hidden it, you often feel as if the church is your enemy, right? Because the church is the one that's opposing love and how you should love. And sometimes God has brought you inside of church and you're living this life, but then you're hanging on a thread with God because you don't know how long you would last. Because again, you'll probably be that person that's saying, God, take the gay away. And there's so many people in the world that have been in church and that have really just gone back and continued living the homosexual life. But God is about salvation, right? And His word stands His word stands forever. And if you are the person that's struggling with that, go through Victory Weekend, right? So that God can really also resolve some of these issues. Because for me, it was a matter of trusting God with, God, this is an identity. And I always thought it would completely erase the feelings. It would completely erase some of these things. But homosexuality is a sin like any other sin. And a person that's, for example, coming from a thieving or a lying background, it doesn't mean that just because they're born again, they're going to stop lying, but they get convicted. But with the sin of homosexuality, it comes with so much pride. And it's not just pride, it comes with an identity that you stand behind. And there's such a community around it. And probably your whole life you'll be like, this is who I am. This is just who I am. But God gives us an identity, right? God literally buries us and raises up with a new identity. And these are some of the challenges that you can actually bring to Victory Weekend and walk away victoriously. We are so unaware of things that happens in our life spiritually. We are so unaware of our ancestral bonds that we still have. We're so unaware of so many things, of generational curses, of the generational trauma that you sometimes carry. Sometimes you have not even experienced abuse in your life, but someone in your generation has, and that's still affecting you, right? And so the victory training does an amazing job in, number one, bringing awareness to that. I did not even know this is an issue that I struggle with. I didn't know that this was considered to be prideful, but God will bring that forth, especially when you're fasting before the victory weekend. My encouragement would be sign up, and there's so much that God will do. It's truly like the name itself, it's a victory. God is training you to get to the victory because God has called us all to freedom. He's given us freedom, but the freedom needs to be get through knowledge and through His encouragement and through His word. So it's a really great time in your spiritual work because God is so concerned with the longevity between you and Him. That relationship, He wants it to last to eternity. And victory training really helps you propel that process as well. So sign up.